In this video, we will learn how to set up, sync, and configure the offline GBV and child protection modules for partner staff. The objectives of this session are to know the requirements for usage of the offline application, to know how to set up the GBV and child protection offline modules in WRAP for partner staff, and to ensure that the offline application is configured correctly for partner staff. We will also learn how to conduct basic troubleshooting of setup and configuration issues. If you are looking for how to set up WRAP, the offline GBV and child protection modules for UNHCR staff, either for use in the real environment or for training, please see our other video, how to set up and sync the GBV and child protection modules for UNHCR staff. We'll first look at the requirements to use the offline child protection and GBV modules. The requirements fall within three categories. The first few usually will take place as part of the deployment in coordination with your operational Progress V4 focal point or with the regional or headquarters-based child protection and GBV module owners. This is that all users should be trained in not only the usage of Progress V4 and WRAP, the offline application, but also need to have previous training in the GBV and child protection modules. Next, as part of the deployment, it is also important that all users will be allocated a Progress V4 account with specific user profiles determined by their roles, and that this Progress V4 account needs to also have access to WRAP, which is the offline application. If you just have a Progress V4 account with no WRAP access, then you will be unable to use the offline app modules. And finally, it's important that the device which you would use the offline application on is whitelisted, which is another way of saying that it is noted down. So all users of V4 on the offline application, it's known which devices that this data is stored upon for security purposes. Both the account as well as the whitelisting of the device can be completed in coordination with your Progress V4 focal point in country. The next set of requirements are around the hardware and the software necessary to use the offline application. First, it is necessary that there is a device that can be allocated for the usage of the offline application. Now, this device, we prefer in general for it to be a laptop or a desktop, as we find that the software works best on these types of devices, but it also could be on a tablet or a mobile device if those are the only options. The second need is around Resco mobile CRM application. This is the application that is the offline application. So it is important that this software is downloaded on whichever device you intend to use offline, CP or GBV modules. If you have not yet seen the video how to download and install Resco, please go back and see that video to ensure that before starting this one, you have already downloaded the application upon your device. And finally, the issue of connectivity. While the CP and GBV offline modules are indeed offline, it is important that periodically there is the ability to have connectivity to allow for the syncing of the application to the online version of V4, and so that any data that is documented in the offline application can be updated in V4, and any updates and information on the online version of V4 can be synced and updated on the offline application. So once we've met these requirements, the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to show you how to actually set up your Resco so that it looks more like V4. Remember, this is again for the configuration of the offline application for partner users, both for training purposes as well as for documenting real case management into the system. So at this point, you should have already downloaded the Resco mobile CRM. And when you do so, you should see a pop-up box such as this. So what you're going to do as a partner user, you will go here and you will click skip and use demo data. If something like this pops up, you're more than welcome to fill it out, but I'm going to go ahead and skip it. And it will take me to a list. So this is what an unconfigured version of mobile CRM looks like. You'll notice on the left here, there are a list of options. These do not align to what you would see in V4. We don't have leads or opportunities, etc. So what I would ask you to do is you will go to Setup and click on Setup. And what you need to do is you will need to go all the way down to where you'll see under Advanced, it will say Home Realm. And in this area, you are going to add in a new home realm, and that will be https://ext-116.unhcr.org. Okay, so I'll leave that there. And so you will see it's https://ext-16.unhcr.org. And once you've done that, you'll scroll back up to CRM, which is the very first one, and you will push Connect. Once you push Connect, now you will select Internal User, and a pop-up box such as this will show up. First, you'll notice it says User Mode. You will leave it as Standard User. If you are setting this up to use the module for actual case documentation, then you will put in the URL for the actual progress environment, which is https://progress.unhcr.org. https://progress.unhcr.org. This is the URL you would use for the real environment to document your real cases. If you are using this to log into the training environment for your initial training or for practice, you instead would put the URL for the training environment, which is https://progress-trn for training.unhcr.org. For either of those, you would go ahead and then you would enter in your username and your password as have been granted to you by the V4 focal point for your operation. So I am going to actually let's do this. And you'll put your name as in like your email and then my password. I will never tell. I recommend to save your password. That way you don't have to re-log in every time. Once you've done this, you're going to go ahead and you will click this button, which is actually in moving forward, this was always the sync button. So this will allow you to, but it will update here. And you'll notice now it says syncing metadata, syncing permissions. And now you'll notice that the list and the coloring has changed. So on the left, you'll see things that look much more in line with the V4 that you would recognize from the online. There are entities that belong to the registration, such as individuals, registration groups. There are referrals. There are also, you'll notice, the modules for child protection and GBV. Now, it is important to keep in mind that you will only see those modules which you have access to. So if you do not have access to the child protection then you would anticipate that you would not see this. The same as with the GBV. If you do not have access or will not be doing GBV case management, then you would not see the GBV module here. If you do not see the modules that you should have access to with your profile, it is important to contact your focal point in country to ensure that your user privileges are correct. You'll notice that the top stripe on my module at this point is green. That indicates that I am in the training module. If I was in the real live environment, it would be blue. Once you are inside the application, there is the ability to configure it additionally for your specific needs in your context. If you were to click on Settings and click on Setup, you will notice that there are a few different options here. There are a lot actually of different options, and we don't need to know all of them, but a few that might be useful for you. The online mode. What this tells you is it tells you how often the client or the application is going to connect to the server. So if there is frequently connectivity to your online possibility, you can decide whether you want it to only sync when you do it manually, when you indicate, only when there's Wi-Fi available, or always. So whenever there's a connection that is available, then you want it to always try to update and sync. Or you could say never. So I tend to use manual for mine so that I can make sure that it will only update and sync when I want it to. Other important things are auto sync. This is to ensure how often the data updates with the server. So you can determine whether you want this to be never, or on start, or on change, or on start and change. So this is really will, again, be dependent upon your needs and country around the level of connectivity and also on the amount of data that would be synced. What you'll notice is usually I had stopped mine to show you, but once you have set your settings, you'll start to see like text changing up here with different percentages, and you'll start to see swirling over here on the right. This all indicates that now you have not only set up your offline module, but you have started to sync, meaning that the data from the online version of V4 is now syncing and updating into your mobile application. Now, sometimes when we go to log in for the first time or set up our offline application, it doesn't always go smoothly. What you can expect sometimes is that there will be a few error messages. And so a few things to look out for if you do receive an error message is to make sure that you do go and you check the setup. Make sure that you are logged in as a standard user. Make sure that you, if as a partner, have changed the home realm to the URL that we gave earlier in this video. Double check for any typos. You might have noticed earlier in this video, I made a typo when I was typing progress. It's very easy to do. So make sure that you have all of your slashes and your backslashes and your colons and your spelling correct. Another issue that oftentimes causes problems is around the version. It is very important that you have the most updated RAP version or Resco CRM installed. If you do not, it can cause issues. So this is something you should do periodically, but also, especially on the first time you're using the application, it's important that you have the newest version. It's possible that if you've had to change in user access rights or a password, that might impact your ability to access it. So if your password has changed, you need to make sure you go in and update that, because if you remember, you have saved your password. So make sure that you go in and update that. If your user rights have changed, then you should notice that in terms of what you're able to access offline. Another issue, oftentimes you will see application locked or access denied. This can be either due to your user access rights or that the device you're trying to use to install the application on and use has not yet been whitelisted. If this is not done, then you would need to go and contact your focal point in country to assure that you have access. And the final one is that the offline application is intended to only be used with one user, meaning that each device would only be used for one offline application. So it's not possible for you to be able to move back and forth freely and easily between different users. And so that can also cause issues around synchronization and logging in. So it's important that when setting this up, you have the necessary devices to allow for those who need to use the system to be able to access the offline application. And that is how to set up and sync your offline application for partners. Thank you very much.